Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, where we unpack South Africa's most explosive political stories, stir them in a big pot of context, and serve them up with a side of sharp analysis. Today's story takes us deep into the heart of the African National Congress, and not the warm, fuzzy, struggle hero or heart people like to imagine. No, we're talking about the messy, backroom dealing, money-swapping political engine room where the ANC's future leaders are made, or rather, bought. Right now, there's a growing storm inside the ANC. With the party's 2026 national conference creeping closer, the stakes could not be higher. This is the moment when the ANC will choose its next set of leaders, the people who will shape policy, control resources, and possibly determine whether the party survives another election or finally loses its grip on power. But here's the problem: many insiders believe the process isn't about vision, experience, or even competence anymore. It's about who can splash the most cash. A senior ANC member, who, unsurprisingly, chose to stay anonymous, has laid it bare. According to them, the leadership race has turned into a straight-up auction. Delegates are being courted not with policy ideas or reform plans, but with gifts, cash, and extravagant entertainment. Forget late-night debates about the future of the economy, it's more about who's hosting the biggest braai and whether the whiskey is top shelf. Political analyst Dr. Polisa Mothapo doesn't mince her words either. She argues that corruption in the ANC's internal elections isn't just a problem, it's a feature of the system. The rules that are supposed to guarantee fairness? They're more like polite suggestions, often ignored without consequence. In her view, the ANC's internal democracy has been hollowed out, with money and connections replacing principles and competence. If you're a delegate, the people knocking on your door are less likely to be armed with a manifesto than with an envelope. Now, the ANC isn't pretending it doesn't know there's a problem. In fact, they've admitted publicly that money has a dangerous influence on their elections. There have been promises of reforms, stricter vetting of candidates, better oversight, stronger controls on campaign financing. But here's the catch: implementing those reforms has been patchy at best. In some provinces, rules are enforced, in others, it's a free-for-all. And without consistent application, the system is wide open to abuse. This is not just an internal housekeeping issue. The danger is much bigger. If money continues to outweigh merit in ANC leadership contests, the party risks electing leaders who are deeply unqualified, people who see public office as a cash cow rather than a platform for service. Experts warn that if this trend continues, the ANC could lose whatever moral authority it still has left. That's not just bad for the party, it's bad for South Africa's governance. After all, the ANC is still the dominant political force, and what happens inside it often spills over into national policy. And the 2026 conference is already shaping up to be one of the most contentious in the party's history. Factions are sharpening their knives, alliances are shifting, and behind the scenes, the scramble for delegate support is intense. The fear is that this scramble will once again be driven by deep pockets rather than deep thinking. We've already heard whispers of potential candidates budgeting millions for campaign expenses, which in ANC speak could mean anything from travel costs to outright vote buying. Think about what that means. When leadership positions are won through financial muscle, leaders enter office owing favors to the people who funded them. That creates a dangerous cycle where public resources are used to pay back political debts. It's a perfect breeding ground for cronyism, state capture, and the kind of patronage networks that have already cost South Africa billions. And let's be honest, South Africans are tired. After decades of corruption scandals, from the arms deal in the 1990s to the state capture revelations in the Zuma era, the public's trust is already running on fumes. Every time a new ANC leader is elected under questionable circumstances, it's another dent in the party's credibility. There's also the irony that the ANC's liberation legacy, the moral high ground it once held, is now being eroded from within. This is the same party that, decades ago, fought against a system of injustice and inequality. Today, some of its own members are accused of creating a system where political opportunity depends on how much you can pay. The delegates who will decide the next president of the ANC, and possibly the next president of South Africa, may be more swayed by a flashy campaign than by a sound vision for the country's future. So, what's next? Will the ANC leadership put its foot down, enforce the reforms it keeps promising, and show that it still values integrity over influence? Or will we watch the same old cycle play out, lavish campaigns, strategic gifts, and leadership outcomes that leave ordinary South Africans shaking their heads? Here's the uncomfortable truth: the ANC's internal politics have a way of shaping national politics. If the party chooses leaders based on who pays the most, we all end up paying, through weaker governance, mismanaged resources, and policies that serve the connected few instead of the many. And while the ANC still has time before the 2026 conference, the clock is ticking. Every week that goes by without real reform is another week where moneyed interests can entrench themselves deeper. The danger isn't just losing an election, it's losing the ability to govern with legitimacy. The next 2 years will tell us a lot about whether the ANC is capable of cleaning its own house or whether it's too far gone down the path of corruption and cronyism. For South Africa's sake, many hope for the former, but if history is anything to go by, hope alone won't cut it. So, here's my challenge to you: keep watching, keep questioning, and keep demanding answers from those in power. Because the health of our democracy depends not just on how we vote in national elections, but on how parties like the ANC choose their leaders behind closed doors. If you found today's breakdown informative, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives into South African politics, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the ANC can reform itself before 2026? Or is this just the new normal in South African politics? Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you next time.